This is Your Anxiety Toolkit, episode number 159. Welcome to Your Anxiety Toolkit. I'm your host, Kimberly Quinlan. This podcast is fueled by three main goals. The first goal is to provide you with some extra tools to help you manage your anxiety. Second goal, to inspire you. Anxiety doesn't get to decide how you live your life. And number three, and I leave the best for last, is to provide you with one big, fat virtual hug. Because experiencing anxiety ain't easy. If that sounds good to you, let's go. Well, welcome back. How you all doing? It's been tough. But I really hope that you guys are actually learning from how hard everything is and that you are super, super strong and super, super resilient, even if things aren't going well. This is, again, just another challenge that you've had to face that you're surviving. And I think that that requires and should result in some celebration. So let's really make sure we celebrate you and we honor the hard work that you are doing. Let's talk about one of the biggest lessons I have learned throughout COVID-19. So we're actually going to consider this my COVID-19 reflection, just to kind of give you an update on where I'm at and how I'm doing, and the one thing I really am learning about myself. And I actually wonder if it's something that you might want to think about for yourself as well, because the more I share about it, the more people have said like, oh my goodness, I am doing the same thing, or oh my goodness, that is such a huge source of my suffering. So as you all know, I took off a significant degree of time from the podcast, mainly because I needed a break more than I even knew. I could tell that, at the beginning of 2020, everybody had known that I had gone through a pretty crappy 2019 with some pretty scary medical issues, which had resulted in some pretty terrible, very difficult mental struggles. And so I had really made this plan for 2020 to be rejuvenating and healing and renewing, and it was nothing. It was nothing like I had planned, as it is for you guys, I am sure. No one knew that 2020 would be such a crappy, very, very hard time with so many different challenges on so many different layers and levels. What I found is that my first intention in taking a break was to rest and to heal and to grieve and to just work out why everything felt so shaky. And to be honest with you guys, it took me about 4 weeks to figure this out. I stopped recording, then I had 2 weeks of recording, so maybe 6 full weeks of not recording podcasts and not saying no to a bunch of people and declining offers and being very strict about my schedule. And it took me about 6 weeks to realize this one thing that I was doing, and countless sessions in therapy and countless conversations with dear friends and my husband, and lots of just thinking and trying to figure out where is my source of suffering coming from? Besides, of course, the suffering coming from COVID-19 and fearing for my friends and family and missing my friends and family and grieving the world and what we're going through. I mean, all of that was happening, but there was still this sense of shakiness in me and I couldn't put my finger on it. And then it wasn't until I had a session with my therapist. I have my sessions online now. In fact, I put my headphones on and her and I have sessions. I take walks around the neighborhood. And, after going over and over this same content and same topics, I realized that the biggest problem wasn't COVID-19 and wasn't anxiety or depression or work or stress or anything. It was the fact that I was throwing a tantrum inside my mind 24/7. And it sounded like this. It sounded like, "Wah, it's not fair. This shouldn't be happening. I'm supposed to be healing. This isn't fair. It shouldn't be happening to me. This isn't the way it was meant to be. I should be allowed to do A and B and be well and have the things I want and be happy and not have anxiety. And it's just not fair." That's what it felt like in my body. And what blows me away is I had no idea I was thinking that way. I had no idea because I think all of those thoughts are, valid. Yeah, it's not fair and this is hard and it shouldn't be this difficult and I should be able to heal and it wasn't meant to be this way. And all of it was valid. It's just the way I was saying it wasn't validating. It was a tantrum. I was throwing a tantrum in my mind. Nobody would know. I didn't even know. It wasn't like I was throwing stuff and yelling and being unkind to my neighbors and so forth. It's that inside, the way in which I was saying the truth, it was the truth. It wasn't fair and none of this is easy and I wish it was easier and it hurts me that people are hurting. But the way I was doing it was a tantrum and that was not helpful. So I had to catch this tantrum that I was throwing. And what I'm not saying here, I always want to be very clear. I'm not saying there isn't a time and a place for throwing a good adult-sized tantrum. I think that is valid and I think we all deserve that, but not the way I was doing it. And I actually, since I've mentioned this to several friends and several clients and colleagues, they were like, "Oh, geez, I'm doing something similar to that." Right? There's this stomping of the feet as if this shouldn't have happened to me. Not me. Why would that happen to me? We don't deserve this. America doesn't deserve this. The world doesn't deserve this. The world is bad, And it's like, okay, that's true. No one deserves to go through suffering. But if we return back to, and this is the foundation of my life, right? The foundation of my recovery, the turning point of my recovery happened when I've told this story before, but I was really stuck in a stage of my life 10, 15 years ago. And my husband bought me a book on Buddhism. And this is not a lesson on religion at all, I promise you. But there was this first line in this paragraph that blew me away, which was, "In life, there is suffering. It's not the suffering that causes you pain. It's your resistance to the suffering that causes you pain." And my life changed in that moment. And this was another lesson for me because COVID-19 and the suffering that happens collectively at this time, that is painful. Yes, that is pain. This is hard. But for me, my suffering came from throwing a tantrum about the fact that life is hard and not accepting that life was never supposed to be easy, right? Now, I want to make sure I'm really clear that this realization for me wasn't like a beat up. It was a compassionate understanding of going, "Oh, Kimberly, you got stuck again. You're throwing a tantrum, hun. And the tantrum isn't helping you. It's keeping you stuck." What I didn't say was like, "Oh my God, Kimberly, you idiot. You should have known this. You've known this for 15 years and here you are throwing an adult-sized tantrum in an adult-sized body. You're a juvenile." I didn't say that to myself. I went, "Hun, that's what this is. You're feeling pain and you're feeling suffering, but you're fighting it. Is there a way that you could not fight it now? Is there a way that you could take off your stomping shoes, sit down, and nurture the fact that this is hard and care for the piece of you that is suffering? Care for the piece of you that suffers because other people are struggling instead of simply resisting it and stomping your feet and wishing it away." Is that possible? Could you change it, right? Could you change? Could you make a short, small shift in your life? And that was it for me. And from there, I could rest a little. And that's actually where the resting started. Not for the first 6 weeks. The first 6 weeks, I threw an adult-sized tantrum inside my mind all day long. And that's really sad. You know, it's really sad. I'm sad to say that, and I'm sad to admit to that. But I'm also going to recognize that I'm a human being. And no matter how insightful I can be, and no matter how many psychological tools, I'm still going to show up as a human. And it's our normal, natural human default to go towards the mindset and the narrative of this shouldn't happen to me. Again, let me say, you're right. It's not fair. It's not easy. I wish this wasn't happening to you and me. But this idea that it wasn't supposed to, the idea that, you know, we're suffering and nobody else is suffering, that's not true. Everybody is. Everyone's got their own stuff. Believe me. In my career, I've seen so many human beings come into my office where I'm like, you know, they seem like everything is together, only to find out they're in such deep pain. And so I'm so grateful for having that opportunity as a therapist to actually see people for who they are, see behind the makeup and the perfect hair and the perfect Instagram post and what seems to be the perfect marriage, to see that we're all human and we all suffer and we all have hard times. So we have a choice now. Do you meet your hard times with tantrums, or do you meet them with compassion and validation and consideration and respect, right? Tough stuff, you guys. All right, so what are we saying here? Number one, if you happen to be able to admit to yourself that you too throw a little tantrum somehow, I applaud you. There's no shame here. I'm not here to tell you this sort of old-fashioned, like, don't be juvenile, stop being a baby. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it's human to be a default into that. But can you recognize where the tantrum starts and ends? And can you identify how it's not helping you? And in those moments, for me now, when I'm having a little adult-sized tantrum in my mind, which it still happens, I just note it, okay, I caught it, and then I use it as a flag, as a symbol, as a road sign to say, okay, Kimberly, you have choices. How are you going to deal with this? You're going to keep tantruming, or are you going to stop and hold space for the fact that this tantrum is representing how much pain you're in, how hard things are, how much you're struggling today? Can we just use it as a sign to go, I see. Okay, I see you, Kimberly. Let's take care of you, right? And hopefully you can use that same approach. Jessica or Ben or Marcus, whatever your name is, I see you. You're in pain, hun. I'm so sorry. I've been ignoring your pain. I've been fighting the pain. Let's just lean into it. Okay. All right. So that's me. That's me. I'm sharing you. That has been my biggest lesson of COVID-19. There have been many, many more. Many in which I don't know yet if I have conceptualized well enough to talk about, but I will. It has been, 2020, I will say, has been the biggest year of growth for me in the last decade. And I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of coming out of a really, really crappy time and really seeing patterns in myself. And that's what this is about. It's just seeing patterns and going, wow, Kimmo, you do this one thing. Isn't that so fascinating, right? Instead of beating myself up. So, I'm good. I'm okay. I know a lot of you have reached out and like, how are you doing? I'm doing good. I'm doing good because I've caught myself in the tantrums. That has been life-changing for me. So I'm going to finish there. You may have questions, and if you do, don't be afraid to go onto Instagram. I'm at Kimberly Quinlan with an E, Kimberley, Quinlan on Instagram. And don't be afraid to ask questions, because questions are awesome. They actually make me think a little bit, and it's great to have them. So I love you guys. I miss you guys. I see you guys. I validate you guys. I am sending you massive waves of compassion and warmth and love. And I hope you're doing well. It is a beautiful day to do hard things, even if that means catching yourself throwing an adult-sized tantrum in an adult-sized brain. We can do hard things. I love you guys. I'll talk to you next week. Please note that this podcast or any other resources from cbtschool.com should not replace professional mental health care. If you feel you would benefit, please reach out to a provider in your area. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for supporting cbtschool.com.